Hello everyone. Warm welcome to all of you to this Friday webinar. My name is Kamal Manocha. I represent PMS AIF World. Another Friday, another very interesting webinar, and we have one of the most interesting guests. One, who is most learned and experienced fund manager and who needs no introduction, Mr. Samir Arora. And hence, we have a very important topic which many of my clients are asking me as a question. And we know, there's this famous quote from Sir John Templeton that four most dangerous words investing are it's this time it's different, and it looks like the same in India today because markets are like very euphoric. I remember, Samir, when we did last webinar, the topic of that webinar was that is this a breakout moment for India? If you I'm just trying to recall you that, right? So, and that time you said it's difficult to say that, but rally is still continuing, and it's been, I think, 3 months when we did that webinar with you, and hence now it is like, is it actually heading towards those dangerous levels that one should not assume that things will keep growing indefinitely? And hence I'm just reminding or remembering that quote of Sir John Templeton, and hence we kind of kept this topic. I would want you to open out this webinar discussion by first giving your views, and then we'll kind of move ahead with further round of Q&A.
So first thing is, thank you very much. So 3 months ago, what I may have said, because that is what I normally say, that we don't need a breakout moment for India to justify investing in the stock market. It is too much to say, something great is happening from here on. That is why you should invest. Because if you believe that, then there is no reason why in the last 25 years also Indian market did very well and actually was the number one performing market in the world in US dollar terms. What I mean is, the markets normally do well. So the default always is that markets will do well. What your question is this different this time? Depends on the period. For example, I feel that after the budget, the market will fall. But that does not mean I think that the market will fall 25%. So that will be a normal correction which will clean up some of these story-led stocks, and maybe they will, maybe they won't. But bottom line is, you can't be so precise about it. But in a big picture sense, this can go on for a long time. So let us say just today I saw one report saying that the Indian market is trading at a 75% premium to Asia Pacific ex Japan. Okay. And उन्होंने लिखा है that the historical average is 50%. Now, this looks like some obscene 2 standard deviations away from the premium average. But if you divide that, so we are at 175, and we, according to these guys, are supposed to be at 150. So that is 175, means you are 15% more valued than what would be considered the average. But are we average of 5 years? Maybe we are a little better, not because we have done something great, but because China has done very miserably for specific to China reasons. एक होता है कि you went up slowly, and then suddenly after some time you realize that one market has massively outperformed the other, but you don't exactly know why. So you will say, "Nee, this will mean revert." But if you can say, this thing happened there, what we had with JPA and Unitech and all that, which is real estate project developers going under, wahan pe ab ho raha hai, or that some foreigners were arrested when they were visiting there, or they were working for Bain company and all, you can type and see. So uske liye 5% can they fall, 10% extra they can fall, but they are a big part of this. So bottom line is, even if you take this literally, so in theory, 15% fall will be at full average. Now, it will never be exactly that. That means 5-7% fall, you will say, theek hai na? So 5-7 more is left. And that you can easily justify by saying that there are some pockets which are absolutely mad in terms of how they have gone up. Ab kya kare uska? That does not mean my Dabba HDFC Bank is doing well, or even Reliance, or these IT guys, or these consumer guys, or most of the financial guys, or Kotak. They have gone up normal, or they have not even gone up. So the best way to look at it is that there are some pockets which are very wild, and maybe they need some story, some trigger to correct, and they will, by just sheer gravity, correct. But the rest of it will move on plus minus. Maybe you go up less than the 15-ish% return, which in rupee terms is what I always say. So you go up 10. But us saal 10 also will look okay, because there are two comparisons you are making. One comparison is with your other choices, which is debt, gold, real estate in a liquid form. And the other choice is for foreign investors, and even for us as a benchmarking, even if you're Indian investors, ki what other markets are doing. So usme, you could underperform. So kya farak pad jayega? Suppose we underperform China, which has a massive, let us say China has a massive one-time kind of re-rating. Ki bhai, it has fallen so much, it is too much cheap, and it goes up 25% and we don't. Fir kya ho gaya? But bottom line is, it doesn't look to me, other than the 2-3 PSU type, defense type, even although we also own and slowly we have to get rid of these, and we will, that the storytelling is working only in these capital goods and this, like 90p, 100p, ye sab cheezein bakwas hain, but they are also not big enough to bring the whole market down, just like they were not big enough to take the large caps up.
So those investors, who actually have been very experienced and very learned, who have had experience of having seen global financial crisis, and then the tough era of demonetization, and then 2017 peak, and then we saw fall of 2018-19. They have been skeptical for last 6 months, because I've been interacting to some of those investors, and they kind of have been feeling that markets are like behaving in such a way that many new
but they should
investors.
not say markets, they should say stocks or sectors, because ultimately you can do what you want. The market is the NSE 500. It is not these 40 stocks that they will give examples of. The market is the market, and the market has not gone up a lot. Even this calendar year, if they are feeling deeply upset, the NSE 500 is up how much? Let's check. I think 10%. In 6 months or over.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, from 22 to 24 probably.
22, आपको लगता है ना उससे कुछ नहीं होता. The 500 is up. Take a second. I think it will be up 13, 14 is my guess. Let me just see. आपको कितना कह रहे हो आप? Oh, sorry, 500 is up.
I think
500 is up 18. काफी हो गया. काफी है, 18% up है. Yeah. Actually, the 50 is up 12%. I don't know. I thought 14. So it is up 18. Okay, so it is 5% more than it should be. But how to fine tune this? How to fine tune this? When if you look at last 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, and 25 years, the rupee returns on average have been 14, 15, 16%. Okay, now it is actually 18 in 6 months. Okay, so 5% correction honi chahiye, which is, I think, my budget might do it, or some event might do it. I'm saying that much you can't be precise now, because what will you exactly do if you knew it will correct 7, 8% or 6%? Unless you say it corrects 20%, which means stocks fall some, because levers won't fall 20 and maybe Reliance won't fall 20. So something else has to fall 30. Wo situation, from where to come up with that straight away? When the rest of the world is also broadly okay, we are also broadly okay. Okay, we are 5-6% ahead. So okay, slow down a little bit. Or buy the stocks which are not up that much. So move to large capish. Do something. Sell your defense stocks. Sell these ridiculous shipyard stocks. I mean, kabhi aisi bakwas to humne bhi nahi dekhi. So sell them, no. अब हम स्टॉक्स भी वही रख रहे हैं. We used to say, not say, the market used to buy HDFC Bank when it was 4 price to book, and not us 80 billion of foreign investors. जब वो 2.4 हो गया था नीचे. Of course, numbers have changed. But I'm saying generally, don't buy the 30 stocks which are most expensive. No. Buy the rest.
No, absolutely.
Maybe
so
some of the older ones. Like we also don't buy new expensive ones, but 2-4 हम भी चलने देते हैं कि चलो देखते हैं how far it goes. But at the first sign of trouble, you sell, put tighter, whatever. But I don't think it end ho gaya. That's what I mean. That is the only thing that the world is interested in.
No, absolutely. But in this rally which is going on, there have been many, I would say, experienced fund managers who have not been able to beat the benchmark, who
I
are like,
agree with you. I agree with you. But that's what I'm saying. This is not a discussion of fund managers. This is a discussion for individual investors. कि आपका underperformer is also beating your other choices non-market.
true,
I agree
absolutely.
with that because the stocks that are going up are wild stocks. So that's what I'm saying. That's not the discussion. Whether you are underperforming or I am
No,
underperforming.
no, absolutely,
But
absolutely.
this
I'm
level
just,
is not. But I'm
no,
saying
I'm
generally that's not the point. The point is, आप steadier stock भी लोगे, which has not gone up a lot. Most probably, that will also beat fixed income. That will also beat other things that you can do with money. Now you want to be more aggressive, less aggressive is a different call. But there will have to be a correction of some of these excesses. But will they bring down the whole market? I don't think they will bring down the whole market. That's what I mean.
so apart from budget, what are the other factors you
No,
say
you need
ahead
an
of?
event, yeah. I'm just saying an event. You need an event. Na? I mean, randomly, kahan se, you need some story, something. So it could be that because the next event is the budget, and there will be some things that they might announce. But how can they announce आपको shipping order of tens of thousands of crores? Anyway, it takes 15 years to make these things. So what can they do to satisfy your expectations? That much they can't do, and nobody can do. If you go so far ahead of reality, तो फिर क्या कर सकते हैं? So otherwise, no. Otherwise, I didn't have a particular event in mind. But if another event comes, I will say, yeah, this event is also a scary event, just because there has to be some correction. But where does that correction have to be? That correction, although I don't like IT, doesn't have to be in IT, or it may be if the results are bad. Who knows? Or it most probably will not be in HDFC Bank, Kotak Bank. हो गया उनका भी होना है. It most probably won't be in these consumer type names where anyway the expectation is low and the results will also be low. But what will you do to bring down levers 10%? Very difficult. So it can only be in the high flyers. So the higher flyers for now happen to be capex related, government related, PSU related. Okay. So the budget is mostly in those areas. So therefore it can be there if it has to be. We anyway don't have half of those. So if it is there, we'll be maybe happier. But it will bring down our whole market for a few days, maybe. Now, if they do a market-wide problem, which is to utter the word capital gain in the budget, then everything is off. It's completely off. Yeah. Then you cannot save 10% of all or something. Yeah. Which means stocks to fall 15, 20%. You don't want an 18 type situation, which was also triggered by capital gain taxes.
I know. But since elections are over, and maybe SEBI has also gone through, asked mutual funds to go through stress test. It could be that it is like something which is actually deliberately brought to bring down correction.
That, of course, because everybody can see. It's like futures and options. You are trying to engineer a sort of a slowdown in that activity because it looks so hyper. It just stares you in the face. It doesn't matter ki apne paise, he's giving up his money. How are you concerned? It is the duty of the system or the regulators to say, don't overdo it. Just like they will overdo it when you take personal loans very high or real estate goes very high, then they raise interest rates. They don't say, "Arey, aapke apne paise hain, do what you want," because you want the overall system to. And also, it looks ridiculous that the Indian futures and options are some 50, 100 times what is happening in US. What does it? It just looks odd, and it is odd. It's like saying if we had a casino like Singapore, there are 2 casinos. But when they got the casino, if I go to the casino, I have to pay $100 visiting fee. A tourist can go without a fee. Because you don't want to have casino khol diya, chalo ji, and you are a rich guy, you are anyway a punter in the market, go and punt in the casino. No, aise nahi hota na. You have to balance these things.
So since you see Indian market from outside of India, what is your understanding of what are the foreign investors' views on in present India? Because for last 3 years, it is the domestic flows which have been surviving the
Actually,
market.
that is not true. I mean, of course, they're surviving. Yes, last year they put in 23 billion. This year, now they have become zero. They were 3-4 billion negative before June, and in June I think they put in $3-4 billion. So net घूम फिर के zero हो गया. But ऐसे नहीं देखो. The every year thing is not whether I should invest or not invest in India for a foreigner. The default is to invest. Because how do we know that? You look at last 25 years history, there'll be only 4 calendar years in which their flows are negative. And if they could invest at a time when there was no Indian guy to invest, so that means they knew कि यार हमारे ऊपर ही है and we are going there to save the market. Now when they see other guys investing, why won't they invest? उनका क्या change हो गया? Nothing has changed. It is that a emerging market as a category is gone because China became at one point 39-40% of the index. So in theory, 3% underweight, 4% overweight, but you had 35-40% in China. And Chinese market has been taken to the cleaners. उन सबके खत्म हो गई स्टोरी एंड उधर से यूएस वाज डूइंग सो वेल एंड इज डूइंग सो वेल दैट एवरी end investor must be saying, why am I an idiot to go to China driven emerging market? But India got its flows, but not big flows because the whole pie was becoming like that. Even now, what are we saying? Yeah? The US market is up. I think NASDAQ is up 18-20% this year. And mostly everybody who's a foreigner goes into US to invest in these obvious 5-7 names. So, एक तो वो issue हो गया. But the overall world is saving. They are giving money to. They are saving money, or pension fund has to gets new money from new employees. ये वो or endowments get donations. वो चलता रहता है जिंदगी भर. वो बीच में you think they didn't put money, but they put a lot of money in private equity. So if you look at it, at the end, in the final thing, there is one Harvard University, one Columbia University. So they put from that bucket rather than this bucket. हम कहते हो they left India, they didn't leave India. They chose that because they thought, according to me, foolishly, that is the formula to make money. Now they've been slapped 25 times there. After some time, they'll come to this side of the market. But overall, if you say their interest in India, cumulatively means aggregate over 2. Even those bad years, there was massive PE flows. Now, by the way, if you see this year, why are the flows negative? They are not negative because the regular FI is negative. They are regular because that fellow is now selling his PE investments. And some of them come as an FII. So, इसलिए आप देखो FDI भी कम लगता है, as which I've been saying that PE money should not be rewarded much, they should not be respected too much, or should be facilitated too much. Because if you put 50 billion now, which is what they put in good years, plus minus 7 years, they will want 100 billion out. Expected. Then you will say, no, but by that time the economy will be big. So when they are taking out 100 billion, some new fellows will put in 100 billion because market badi hoga, naya P wala aa jayega. Correct? But he will want then 200 billion out in 7 years from there. So this game in the end has to blow up on everybody's face. FI का अलग होता है. FI के अभी 800 बिलियन इंडिया में है क्यूमुलेटिव. चलो एक साल पहले. अब आप हर साल 15-20 बिलियन या डालोगे या निकालोगे. साथ में मार्केट विल गो अप 5-10% और फॉल 10%. अगर वो मार्केट गोज अप 10%, आपके 800 पहले 880 हो गए. Then those guys will take out 20-30. They have no ability, because this market will not allow them to take out 100 billion from the stock market directly. कि बेच के हम जा रहे हैं. वो तो it will be beyond. That would mean we have become a very big market. But mostly what happens is, when those guys are selling the market and the market falls 10%, anyway their weightage to India falls from 800 billion to 720 billion. आपने निकाले 5 billion, but sorry, your 85 billion exposure has reduced because the market fell 10%. इसलिए वो FI का money क्या होता है, वो it moves within limit. For example, in 2008, they took out some 14-15 billion, the market fell 50%. So, I don't know how much it was, but let's say it was 300 billion at that time. आपने 15 बिलियन निकाले, but आपका exposure कम हो गया 160 बिलियन. So, अपने आप वो करेक्ट हो जाता है, बट यू डोंट नीड टू एक्चुअली गिव देम. प्राइवेट इक्विटी वाला क्या, ही कीप वेटिंग, गुड टाइम बैड टाइम, वो अच्छे टाइम की वेट करेगा फिर आ जाएगा. But overall, nobody is losing interest in India. It is now the fourth largest market in the world. It is the fifth biggest economy in the world. It has been a good performer for 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, 25 years. So it is easiest to say that we are not expecting much higher returns than in the past. But can you expect similar returns with higher confidence? Those returns being 13-15% in rupee terms, and in the past 11-12% in dollar terms. But if the rupee does not depreciate, then maybe 13-15% in dollar terms also. So it's not a bad thing. You can do it for a long time.
So you kind of would like to disagree with that quote that this time is really different.
No. This time is different. It is this time is not different for some shipyard company. It is not different. But I'm talking about the market, because the market has not gone up as much as you think. For example, okay, let's do it differently. What is the NSE 500 return for the last 2.5 years? Chalo ji bataiye. Okay, so this year
NSE 500
20%, as we just discovered. Last year, how much was it up? Around 25%. Okay, how much was it up in 2022 calendar year? We are talking calendar year now. 4%. So in 2.5 years, it is up, say 48%. 5% ले लो, फिर 25% ले लो, 30 multiply करना है, but चलो add कर दो, एक ही बात है, compound करना है, but it 50% in 2.5 years. तो क्या हो गया फिर? What is the annualized? कुछ नहीं है, it's okay. It's nothing great. It's the same. वो mid-teen ही return बनता है. Mid-teen return बनता है, जो मर्जी कर लो.
So stock specific, there have been kind of euphoria. And
yeah, exactly. And that is obvious to everybody. Even to us in the stocks that we own also. कि नहीं यार ये चल रहा है, चलो देखें कहाँ तक जाता है, weightage कम करते जाओ. But overall, maybe for us, we think 5-7% of our fund is in overvalued. हम कह रहे चलो देखते हैं, बजट से 2 दिन पहले डिसाइड करेंगे कि जीरो करना है कि बाद में करना है. Everybody will be having, and they will know it also. Unless you have done a fund on this basis, which is the most ridiculous kind of fund that have been launched.
There has been a latest article from one of your, old and dear friends, Mr. Ramdev Agarwal ji, where he is saying that every year Sensex doubles, and from 80,000 in 5 years by 2029, he is kind of projecting it could double.
15%. वही तो same कह रहे हैं ना, मोटा माटी. वो 15.
I'm just trying to remind. Yeah.
I saw that one.
He's also saying the same.
Because that is the actual history. No, that mid-teen, and that is, by the way, it's not just that it gives. There has to be a logic for it. So the logic is, if you see what is the average corporate earnings growth, mota mati it is 13-15%. If you don't like that, go further. What is the average growth of the private sector banks these days, including this HDFC will still grow 14-15% this year. Okay, so it's up 14, 15, 18, 20 होते हैं. IT वाले कितने होते हैं रुपी में? आजकल थोड़े कम है, but घूम फिर के 10, 12, 14 type होते हैं. How much is the consumer guys? 10, 15, then some consumer guys grow a lot. That is the history. If you look at GDP growth of India in nominal terms, कितनी होती है? 12%, 7% real growth and 5% inflation of 12%. If you say, what is the premium to fixed income government bond that normally markets give? So government bond is at 7-ish, 7% होता है, 6.9 कभी 7. उसमें 5% जोड़ दो, 5-5.5%. वो worldwide number है ये. Between 5 and 6 over long periods of time. Not every year आपको 12% मिलने, और घूम फिर के आपको 13-15% मिलते हैं, वही मिल रहे हैं. So it's not out of line. That's what I'm saying. 2.5 years also is not way out of line.
So it has actually taken a lot of effort, for last, I think, 10 years for us to set up this belief and faith. I know since first webinar I did with you, you have been talking about 14-15% as an average. Kind of claim and to kind of, add this faith and belief that, equity is an asset class for long term to create wealth. It has actually been a lot of effort. I'm telling you,
Yeah, I agree. But the only thing to Kane says, it is not automatic in the sense, it is not every year. It is not linear. But घूम फिर के it is this. And इसको छोड़ो, let's go to US. So what do you think is the US return for the index for the last 25 years in INR terms, it'll be 12. Their return is about 8 odd percent in dollar, I think 7.58. और 3-3.5% हमारी करेंसी गई है. उनको छोड़ो, हम अपनी बात कर रहे हैं हमारे टर्म्स में. So हमारे टर्म्स में 11-12%. So US has gone up 11-12% for 25 years. हम यहाँ इसलिए wild नहीं है. I think it's not wild. Some sectors are wild. Now, I hope and most probably they are not big enough to bring down everything. That's what I think.
Understood. You have recently, launched a new fund, which is financial services fund. I have been seeing, for the last 5 years, many have tried to launch a financial services fund, but timing may not have kind of matched. Maybe your timing will be good,
but we didn't bother about timing. हमने कहा कि what is easiest to say to you that for us it is our biggest weight. So it's not, oh, I want to launch a defense fund, but in my own diversified fund, I have 1.5% in defense stocks. But since you guys want a hot sector, which I am scared, so I will sell you a defense fund. So it was on that basis that it is the biggest weight for us in our other funds, including the mutual fund, even in my offshore fund. The second thing is, people have the feeling that this sector has underperformed recently. Actually, it has not massively underperformed. Only 2 stocks have underperformed, or maybe 2.5, which is Kotak Bank, HDFC Bank, and a little bit in the last 2 years, Bajaj Finance. But you see, previous 20 years, and I remember these off the top of my head because we did a video thing with Dinshaw on this. So from 2000 to 2020, the Nifty 500 underperformed Nifty. For 20 years, the mid cap and small cap underperformed the large cap. Okay, please number one. Because वो घूम फिर के, which will happen now also, in the end, they all are plus minus same. In that 20 years, the bank index, because financial services index, whatever, was not even there in 2000, beat the market by some 6% per annum for 20 years. And from 20 to now, the index is less by about 5% per annum against the 500. But ये 3 stock की कहानी है. Otherwise, if you see the brokers, you see the CAMs, or you see these market intermediaries, or you see some of these NBFCs, they've all done much better than the overall index. So overall chalta hai wo. It's one of the worldwide, also the largest number of billionaires in US, the largest number of billionaires in the Forbes list. The number 1 sector for all is financial.
So, we have been seeing mid and small cap as a segment performing in the cycles of 4 years.
Correct.
You think, this time also it is like last year of that 4-year cycle, or
yes, जरूरी होता है कि last year हो, but that you cannot break that. It in the end will be same. How do we say that? इसको छोड़ो. US में चलो best होता है. Because US में आप बहुत जितना मर्जी पीछे ले जाओ. So what you do is just see for the last 20 years, that is 2000 to 2020, the performance of S&P 500 and the Russell 2000. Russell 2000 means bottom 2000. 3000 में से वो नीचे वाले 2000 लेते हैं. Same performance. Last 4 years में completely उल्टा. उनका S&P has beaten, because of 7 stocks have done very well. तो वहां पे complete opposite है. वहां पे S&P 500 has massively beaten Russell 2000 for 4 years and has massively beaten S&P equal weight. Equal weight means no extra weight for Apple and Nvidia and all, सबको same weight 500 stocks. इंडिया में complete opposite है. अब आप बोलो वर्ल्ड चेंज हो गया, तो वर्ल्ड चेंज हो गया तो वहां अलग चेंज हो गया, यहाँ अलग चेंज हो गया, कैसे हो गया? एंड ऑल्सो क्या चीज नहीं हुई है, क्या हुआ है कि बीजेपी हैज वन तो स्मॉल कैप बढ़ेंगे, ये क्या लॉजिक है? वहां पे whoever has won or lost तो स्मॉल कैप नहीं चलेंगे. बॉटम लाइन इज in the end they are plus minus the same. Some of the small caps become big and some of the large caps become small. ऐसी लाइफ चलती है. There is no this thing that कोई 1% here or there की आउट परफॉर्मेंस पर annum हो सकती है. But this kind of outperformance means it's in the middle of that outperformance curve, जहां से वापस देना होता है. जैसे if you had seen this at the end of 17, then again you would have felt that the small caps and mid caps do very well. then comes 18 and वो 40-50% गिर जाते हैं, and the other falls 10-15% बराबर हो जाता है सारा. Because please remember, the fall of 20% extra is a much bigger issue than a rise of 20% extra. तो वो लगेगा आपको कि अरे 100% बढ़ा था और वो 50 गिरा तो 50 रह गया. ये सब 50-60 बढ़ा था और 10-20 गिर गया तो घूम फिर के, not in 1 year, but if you see, it's just the data. You can see that also at the end of 14. So who knows? That would be different if we said this time it is different. And ये flows की जो कहानी है कि हमारे म्यूचुअल फंड के flows हैं, वो कहानी cannot be sold to yourself कि that is the reason why I'm investing in the market, क्योंकि बाकी लोग भी इन्वेस्ट कर रहे हैं, therefore the market will be held high. ऐसे नहीं होता. Because if you see 2008, the total amount of institutional buying from domestic guys was higher than the FII selling by some 2-3 billion. इन्होंने कोई 20 बिलियन खरीदे थे, उन्होंने 17, 14, 15 बिलियन बेचे थे. खाली 50% मार्केट गिरी थी या 60% गिरी थी with a net institutional buying. That is no logic. Please ask him. Sorry, I was reading the question. One question was, please ask about leverage in investing. So the thing is, we in our offshore fund are effectively levered because we are long short. So we are say 110 long and 40-50 short. तो हमारा 180 का, 170 का, 150 का वो होता है gross exposure. So we take that leverage from the futures market, but because our net is low. But actually you are not supposed to lever because rates are like you'll get at 10%, the market goes up only in theory 15%. तो 4-5% को magnify कितनी बार करेंगे? And so no, everybody says, we also say, I have never personally in my life levered ever to buy stocks ever. Okay, G, what is the question? Can change in options taxation bring down the market? First of all, that is nearly guaranteed that something has to be done because 3 people have said, SEBI chief, RBI chief, finance minister. So ab kaun bacha? So it has to happen in some form or the other. It doesn't have to be taxation. It could be contract size बढ़ा दो. It could be पता नहीं net worth देखो पता नहीं क्या करो, something or the other to bring it down. So I don't think this will bring down the market beyond those. Some days it might. For a few days it might. Again, this will not be viewed by the rest of the industry or mutual fund industry or FI as something bad. But it could bring down if that is the angle. So is it different for gold? Yeah, actually, although I have a good amount of gold, maybe 6-7% of my this thing, but I thought that gold should not work initially because I thought that 5-6% interest rate jab ho gaya, that the holding cost is too high because in dollar you're getting some 5.5%. But then it became, I think, at the same time this Ukraine war happened because the interest rate hike also happened then. And usse ye nikla that the sovereign governments are scared that if you leave money in US bonds and US treasury, the bloody government of USA impounds your money like they did with the Russian this thing. That I think spoiled the sentiment for sovereign this thing, like China wala kyun dollar kharide, if on a bad day you can say it is blocked. So I don't know the exact reason, but then the gold did well. I don't think it will go on doing well. I still have, but one day I will. Whenever I feel in a good mood or bad mood, I will sell it. But we have. Will Helios have PSUs like REC? What is PSC? I don't know. What is PSC? PFC.
PSUs. PSUs. Yeah.
No, PSUs, so we have many. We have State Bank, we have Canara Bank, we have NTPC, we have एक दो और भी है वो है हमारे पास भारत इलेक्ट्रॉनिक, REC and PFC. You see, recently we found that PFC has bailed out Shapurji Palonji's कंपनी, ये सब चीजें हमें पसंद नहीं है. Plus, I think, although I own PSUs, I think PSU trade is getting a little bit over, because there were two things. One was that the government will be more aggressive in reforms when they come back with 300, 400, whatever number of seats. Now they won't be that aggressive. The BPCL privatization has already been announced that it will not happen. I used to think that it will happen because previously they tried to do it. Container Corporation is off. Now the only thing is they will give you some orders. I think those orders cannot be of the same size as what the market must be believing. If you look at the stock prices, we don't even analyze some of these companies, so we don't know what they are dreaming. But big picture, they can't dream. This much dreaming is not allowed, because even the tax collections cannot be that high. Already you saw GST collections have become 7%, simply because in the past 4-5 years, if the GDP is growing, say 11%, 12%, how can tax collection grow 20%? Okay, ji Kamal ji, aap batao. Because it is linked to GDP, all these taxes. Because there is higher compliance. Because the guy who was not paying has to pay. But uski to limit hoti hai na. One day everybody who has to pay who is supposed to pay has started paying. Then it becomes literally only GDP growth. Extra kahan se aa denge? Because every percent of that GDP mein koi tax lag raha hai. GST lag raha hai, ye lag raha hai. So therefore these things can't go on for ever. So when you are growing, the tax is not at 25% but at 12-13%, फिर आपको automatically कम हो जाएगी. इसलिए if you see now what they are doing, now all the PSUs are announcing investments. So like BPCL announced a 30,000 crore investment in Petrochem. And कल और परसों the power companies are either announcing or these guys said announce. ये स्टॉक मार्केट के लिए अच्छी चीजें नहीं है कि दी कंपनी दैट यू ओन इज मेकिंग हेवी कैपेक्स. वो 4-5 साल तक वो इन्वेस्टमेंट चलती रहती है. द होल थियरी इज कि जब वो खत्म हो जाएगा देन यू आर सपोज्ड टू बाय दोस स्टॉक्स, नॉट व्हाइल दे आर मेकिंग दीस मैसिव इन्वेस्टमेंट्स.
Someone is asking why is Bajaj Finance stock not performing?
So for 2.5 years, so we also didn't have. Then we bought a little after they got their RBI clearance. So even I am amazed. But maybe it is expensive. And one more thing we have realized is that this market is only into momentum right now. Only into momentum. For example, after the massive outperformance of ICICI Bank, which also, by the way, is our second largest holding, ICICI Bank in 2 days has outperformed HDFC Bank by 9%. If somebody thought in a year, this bank will outperform the other bank which is sort of in the same bucket by 8-10%, वो भी बड़ा ज़्यादा लगता है कई बारी. Yeah, 2 days. So everything is exaggerated these days in terms of good and bad. Yeah.
Probably that is why quant funds are doing really well, because we are saying markets are like following the momentum.
Could be. I agree.
Because most of the
momentum का क्या होता है, फेज होता है. बट अभी आजकल तो है. आई एग्री विद यू. दीस डेज देयर इज अ मोमेंटम का फेज. या अब वो कब खत्म होता है वो पता लगेगा. फिर वो बिकॉज ओवर टाइम कोई भी एक चीज नहीं चलती, अदरवाइज नोबडी विल डू एनीथिंग एल्स. बट या it's like saying growth will outperform value, but if it always did, then the value guys will disappear. But वो 2-4 साल बीच में आते हैं, they make up, and therefore over time they can say you are indifferent. It's just that the periods are like this. So our model always was, if you see our fund, we say हर term के लिए we don't want an excuse that we, although we may underperform and have many times, but not many times, that we did badly because PSUs were doing well. ना ऐसे नहीं हमारा काम. हमारा काम है as far as we can consistently try and outperform. So if there are 30 stocks or 40 stocks in the fund, आप 5 stock change कर लो ना. क्या हो गया, लड़ाई की क्या बात है? It is not that there are only 40 stocks I believe in and the 41st stock in India is a curse on human mankind or something. No. There are 80-100 stocks you can buy. आपने at one point you thought this is good, then something changed, आपने 4 stock दूसरे कर लिए. You won't have to change all the 40 stocks, and you are ready for the new environment, even though you might have missed the turn. So that is the way. So momentum, broadly, we already have a few momentum stocks like these defense stocks. We didn't buy it with that thing, but that is what they are behaving. So what can we do? We are just saying, okay, good. They are helping us in our performance and outperformance.
Fundamentally speaking, from here onwards, what are the three top sectors which like fundamentally should kind of be there with heavyweights to outperform the index?
So the first one is this, financials, because it generally does well. You can associate it that they are good companies. You can see visibly that some of them have not performed. But even otherwise, if you see the growth rate of earnings, you look at the best of the IT guys' growth for the next 1 year. It'll be 60-70% of what even our worst performing investment these days, which is HDFC Bank, will give. So HDFC Bank will grow 14-15%. People are talking about Infosys growing in dollar terms at maybe 1%, 2%, 3%. Guidance ही इतनी है. उसको आप रुपी शुपी कर लो, चलो 10% बढ़ा लोगे. So financials is generally always been good and now is also good. Other may we are now not favoring IT for now. Let's see what the results are. Because what happens in IT is that they keep talking about orders, but they don't have any current this thing. Then they are not hiring. So हमें तो वो नजर आता है कि they themselves are not very strong believers in their short-term future. Then they use words like leaking bucket, that our old orders are being cancelled. And we are getting new orders, but those new orders are these cost-saving orders. But let's see, maybe they see some green shoot here and there. But the one stock on the basis of which this market went up, which was क्या नाम है यार उसका, वो अमेरिकन क्या नाम है यार, नाम भूल जाता हूँ मेरे आजकल, एक सेकेंड. Yeah, the guy who outperform, who give this good guidance or whatever. I forget the name. The stock went up 8% 2 weeks ago because they had Accenture. So Accenture went up 8% because they said that we'll be growing on -1%, and people thought that was better than expected. अब ऐसी चीजें मेरे को पसंद नहीं आती हैं कि 1% नेगेटिव ग्रोथ को आप कहोगे बड़ा अच्छा रिजल्ट है. But even there, the stock went up 8% that day, and our Indian, all these companies went up 5%. And from that day, that fellow is down. And year to date, he's down 15% or so. Our guys are up 5-10%. It's like I feel for now that I'm not buying. Let's see. And the third sector is consumer. So in consumer, because the stocks are quite expensive, we are only willing to buy even more expensive stock, but it should grow more than 20-25%. Don't show us 5% and 8% growth like these lever types. At least show us Varun Beverage or Zomato or something. So sapne to le hum ki 30%, 25% grow honge. So that is the thing. We don't want regular India GDP growth or lower than that at 50 multiple.
Do you think, in US interest rates now have kind of more or less peaked and they will come down, or they may not come down soon?
No, they will come down after election. They will come down.
Yeah. And then they will come
themselves. I don't have to say. I just believe what the US system is. It'll happen maybe end of this year or first quarter next year. It'll happen. But usme, what will you do beyond a point? Usme kya hota hai, unless there's some crisis happening there, we have to be on our own. But if there is a big negative event, then we have to analyze it more. Abhi wo to koi nahi keh raha ki it'll be hiked. Oh, theek hai, 2 mahine baad ho jayega. But it's expected.
Because there is this, risk theory going on that in the last 40 years, interest rates in the US have come down, and that has fueled equity as an asset class.
Correct.
And now interest rates have started going up. Maybe they may come down temporarily.
No. They have not started going up. They have gone up from 22 Jan guidance hai. So ab 2 saal ho gaye hain. And in these 2 years, the market fell in 22 and went up so much more in 23 and now. So वो तो disprove हुआ. But yesterday the JP Morgan head of strategy was fired because he was negative. At least that's what Bloomberg says. He was like some of our Indian strategists who were every day trying to find something negative. Actually, I own all those stocks except Apple. They are really good stocks. Yeah, मतलब क्या मुकाबला करेंगे हम लोग? So that I don't think there's anything wrong.
So all those analysts, who are talking about US going in recession, almost all of them have gone wrong. We still do not know whether US going in recession or not.
Correct. That we also don't know. But अभी क्या है कि अगर recession होगा भी, so फिर वो interest rate cut से mix हो जाएगी story. Even now, US market reacts to bad news better. अगर आप कहते हो ना थोड़ी job वो कम हो गई है, थोड़ी personal income spending कम हो गई है, वो growth, वो stock market बढ़ जाती है उस दिन. That means they want a little bit of bad news because they are giving more credit to interest rate cut than to the economy doing, little better. Little better वाले दिन market गिरती है, if you see, when the numbers are a little better on the economy side.
Actually, equity markets, over the way markets have been going, they have proved many of the sayings. And I know Mr. Prashant Khemka has been saying that he's 100% into equities, and he says all this macro news is entertainment. One should not be worried too much about that.
No,
I'm saying many new investors who have come to the market over the last 5-6 years, they have yet not seen any fall. But despite many falls happening in the history, equities have been doing really well. Absolutely, that is true. But still, investors are like always wanting to.
I think investors are okay if their expectations don't become 25% but become 12-15%.
Well said.
ये उनका adjustment नहीं है, वो अपने आप हो जाएगा. उसीलिए they are doing these options and futures because they think you are supposed to make 30% in a year or 40% in a year. वो नहीं चल सकता. Except once in a while for some investors. At a market level, it cannot be because in the end, underlying growth से कुछ तो connection करेंगे ना.
Beyond financial services, the other two sectors you were to mention.
So I was saying that I like consumer, but I'm not liking these regular consumer guys who are supposed to improve by growing at 4% instead of 3% volume term. ये सब मुझे नहीं पता. कब 20-25% growth तो दिखाओ. So we therefore put our money at that time into hotels and into the Zomato types and into Varun Beverage and all that. And so abhi chal raha hai, but all the hotels also quite a bit has happened. But still, we have to say big picture. We like consumer because we have it there in our fund. There's no third sector because we had all these PSUs, but they are not in one sector. And there also, as I said, on the margin, I will not buy. Even the ones I own, we will not buy.
What is your view on India's manufacturing sector or industry or segment?
वो सब कहानीबाजी है from a stock market point of view, because these same 5-7 companies, because they are doing some assembly, they are doing PLI, ऐसे सुना होता है. Because if you look at it, कुछ तो we should look at the world, that what is the multiple of Hon Hai, which is Foxconn. It's a listed company. I think 8 भी नहीं होगा. हमारे यहाँ कितना 150, 120. So these things have to correct for whatever reason. Or even if they don't correct, it won't change the logic that, okay, 1 or 2 companies can actually become big, which we thought will not become big. But broadly, at a large level, this thing cannot sustain at the way it is. Also, for many of these companies, the work that you are doing is so low tech for now. क्या उसमें 3-4%, 5% margin के लिए कितना multiple दोगे? So it's okay. I think that is needed for jobs. Like if Apple is assembling phones in India, or you are assembling phones for Apple, आपको क्या मिलेगा? In the olden days, if your client was Reliance, we used to say we are not buying that stock because Reliance पैसे नहीं बनाने देगा आपको. It's the same thing in US. आपको अगर Walmart का business मिल गया, लगे रहो, घिसते रहो, but you will not get a multiple. First of all, he's too big relative to you. He's too large relative to you. He is maybe a monopoly guy for you because he will take all your production. अब आपकी bargaining power क्या रह गई? So some of these things are good because thousands of millions or tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands people will get jobs in a factory setting type job, which is the job that blue collar jobs या slightly unskilled वालों को job मिल गई with a bit of training, वो चाहिए ना अलग से. Everything is not my stock market, by the way. For example, if you make massive investments in roads, capex, power, ओके, जो पावर का बेच रहा है वो ठीक है, लेकिन जो कर रहा है उसमें हमें कोई इंटरेस्ट नहीं होता ना. वो अगर किसी को बिजनेस दे रहा है, ओके, मे बी वंस इन अ व्हाइल यू कैन बाय दैट, बट द गाय हु मेक्स द कैपेक्स, वी डोंट लाइक हिम. वी डोंट लाइक एनीबडी हु मेक्स बिग कैपेक्स. You only want beneficiary of that capex, not to be yourself the spender of that capex. Because 5 साल लग जाते हैं, आपके सारे रिटर्न नंबर्स खराब हो जाते हैं, रिस्क बढ़ जाता है, वो बीच में डिले हो गया, गवर्नमेंट चेंज, पॉलिसी चेंज, फ्यूल चेंज, देखे नहीं है थाउजेंड्स ऑफ वो यूएमपीपीज, वो सारे एयरपोर्ट्स, एवरीथिंग यू सीन.
There is this one very interesting question. When do you think one should go in cash by 30-40% in their portfolio and go on a vacation? Is there any such?
I am going on vacation next week, no cash. No, 30-40% is a very serious one for at least a fund. And I have done once 30% and it completely failed. And that was after November 8th. So the idea was that this country runs on black money. वो कैसे खरीदोगे चीजें, होटल में कैसे जाओगे, क्या करोगे? And then, so I raised 30% cash, saying it will stall. And by the way, actually economy did stall for a year to 2 years to maybe even 3 years, but the stock market did not stall because लोगों ने वो पैसे डाल दिए बैंक में, और बैंक ने फटाफट बोला कि जी ये फंड खरीद लो. So all that money went into the stock market, and the fund manager didn't care कि वो stall हुआ है कि नहीं हुआ. He said क्या हो गया, 1 साल में ठीक हो जाएगा, let me think of next year. And after 2 months we also said screw it up, हम क्या करें. So we also bought back whatever we had sold. But so that was a 30% cash. Then I raised around 15-20% cash after Ukraine, because first of all it was a war being fought in Europe. It was not a war which you don't see on TV because it's being fought in, Sudan, or it's being fought in Syria or somewhere. Oh, bloody Europe में war हो रही है. And that year the interest rates hike का already बोलना शुरू कर दिया था US Federal Reserve ने. Market फिर didn't fall. बड़ा मुश्किल है. Timing of this is too difficult. Of 30-40% cash. And vacation में जाने के लिए means you are a trader then. If you are an investor, how does it matter whether you are going on vacation? आपने ऐप में देख लेना अपनी प्राइस, और क्या करना है आपने उसके साथ.
Perfect. I think we have answered more or less all the questions. If you see any question yet unanswered, you can maybe answer that.
Hotel industry, I told you we own for now. We are, because normally these cycles go longer than 2-3 years. By the time new hotels are set up, capacity is set up, so then it becomes oversupply, undersupply. Right now, although a lot of returns we already got, but we are not even trimming. We are not even trimming as of now. Telecom, we own Bharti, but today you must have read that Reliance will now come out with a Jio IPO. पता नहीं real news है कि नहीं, but mostly logical तो है. So we'll see how it goes. How to get exposure to tech stocks of US? I don't know. I'm an NRI, so I can get. I don't know how you get. US election, I 100% support Donald Trump. I am more into US politics than Indian politics. It's too much fun these days. Do you follow a value or growth strategy? Mostly we follow a growth strategy. But when last 2 years these value stocks were doing well, that is why we ended up looking at PSUs and bought HPBP and PSU Bank. Not State Bank, which we had even before that. So अब वो हल्के हल्के देखेंगे क्या होता है. What is your view on idea, HFCL वगैरह वगैरह? We have no idea and negative interest. ठीक है जी.
Perfect, Samir. I think it was really
Thank you very much.
a pleasure conversing with you. You know, reinforcing investors' confidence, our confidence. Absolutely. Thank you so much for your time. And thank you.
Confidence इतना होना चाहिए कि nobody knows anything, so don't worry.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well said. 100%.
Okay, thank you.
Faith. It has to be faith. Absolutely.
Exactly. It's a longer term statistical faith.
Correct.
Shorter term में क्या पता, but वो घूम फिर के if you hang around, it'll compensate for this volatility as it has forever. So this time it's different होगा कि it doesn't compensate. No, it is the same. It is not different. It will make up if it falls, but there's no reason for it to be this thing. Okay, thank you guys.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you once again.